Peace and love, family, and welcome to another Sunday Hope and Healing session. I'm Royce Fletcher Thomason, and I'm here offering through the Sunday Hope and Healing session encouragement, hope, actual healing, resolution to some of the problems with life. Do that through sharing insights and information that's actually been a blessing to me on my journey. I've had some, like most people, I imagine, I've had some things that have gone really well, and I've had some things that have not gone as well as I would have liked for them to have gone. And I've experienced a tremendous amount of healing in my journey and some degrees of awakening as well. And I'm here to share with you some of the things that have helped me, or things that I've been blessed to uncover on my journey, in hopes that they'll be a blessing to you and support you and your journey. I believe that we have a responsibility when we get certain things to be able to then pass those things on, things that helped us and that have empowered us, so that we might all be empowered, that we might all be awakened to greater levels of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, that we all might be uh, able to walk more freely in the truth of who we really are at our core and our at and I and at our essence. And so, a little over 20 years ago, I was blessed to uh, develop this methodology of healing referred to as Transcending the Matrix. And we utilize that modality, which is very much a holistic modality that looks at the totality of really our lives, and recognizes that the root of the problems that we have aren't really what we tend to think that they are. In fact, they're almost never what we think the problem is. It's always something deeper beyond that. And so, through this methodology of transcending the matrix, we've actually been blessed to participate in the healing of thousands of people all across the globe. And Curly Conscious King, greetings to you, my brother. Good to see you in the space today. And this isn't something that I can just do. It's something that is available within all of us. We just have to access it. And so, at any rate, our focal point for today, drum roll, is four keys to resolve any problem. Four keys to resolve any problem. I was really praying on what to cover today for today's Sunday Hope and Healing session, and this was what came up. And so we're going to go with it. And when I say any problem, I'm talking about relationship problems. I'm talking about health problems. I'm talking about problems on your job. I'm talking about relationship problems or challenges. I'm talking about financial problems, whatever the case might be. Um, these four things really address all of those. You see, we have these situations in our lives that come up, and we have these challenges that we end up dealing with. We have these frustrations. I just very, very recently had a situation here in my home. Um, the largest spider I've ever seen in my life that was not in a cage was in my place, and in my kitchen, and I couldn't track it down. The issue is resolved now, but that too, it was more than what meets the eye. You might have different situations going on in your life with your health, or with just difficult family situations. You might find that there's certain kind of situations that just tend to repeat themselves. You might see them showing up over and over again and wonder, why do you have to keep going through this? You might have situations where you end up having the same relationship challenges, or where different financial troubles keep revisiting you, or you might have issues where you've had some health challenge, and then it just is recurring. You may have had surgical procedures to deal with a certain thing, and maybe it's come back. Maybe the cancer has come back. Maybe whatever the issue is, doesn't seem to be resolved, no matter how diligently you work towards it, towards the resolution of it. And for whatever reason, in my mind, I hadn't necessarily planned on speaking to this, but something came to my mind. There's a story in the biblical record in the New Testament of a lady who had been hemorrhaging. She'd been hemorrhaging for a long time, for 12 years, and she had actually done everything that she knew to do and couldn't get any resolve. She had spent all of the money that she had on doctors trying to get well, and she could not get this issue resolved. I imagine that she was frustrated, that she was feeling destitute in some ways. After having dealt with this issue for so long, done everything that she knew to do, spent all of the money that she had, and still got no resolution. And she came to learn about this man, Yeshua, Jesus, and he was in town, and there was a crowd pressing around to get to him. She had heard stories about wonderful healings that people had experienced, and she wasn't really able to uh, quite get his attention in the way that she would have liked in the midst of this throng of people. But she said to herself, if I could just get close enough to him, just to touch his clothes, you know, I'm believing that something miraculous will happen with me. And that was what she did. And that was indeed what happened. And she was able to get that resolution that she had been looking for, that she had so painstakingly been endeavoring to resolve for so long. And she ended up finding herself in the right place at the right time with the right mindset. And the issue that she had been dealing with for so long indeed came to a point of resolution. And so that's some of the work that we do with Transcending the Matrix. Uh, Sometimes I refer to this as a healing modality. Sometimes I just refer to it as a way of life. It's really a framework through which the world can be observed in the context of um, a term that I think captures us very well in the ancient Sanskrit. The term is Maya. And what that term really means is that things are not as they seem. And the reality is that the people in your life that are working your nerves, things aren't as they seem. The health condition that you might be dealing with, things aren't really as they seem. There's something that you're experiencing going on, but there's something else going on altogether that's at the root of it. What you're seeing happening in the world from a perhaps from a geopolitical standpoint, things again aren't as they seem. It doesn't mean that we don't have a role to play. It doesn't mean that there aren't things that we need to do. Um, it doesn't mean that we don't have some responsibilities to take, and there are some physical things that we need to do, because all of those things have their place, most certainly. But I want to say that no matter what the issue is that's manifesting in your life physically, the root of the issue is something that's spiritual. And I'm going to, in terms of these four keys, and I've been doing this for a long time, and there are certain things that come up over and over and over and over and over again. Um, I just was actually, I was actually just watching earlier this week this video. It was a lady talking about 90. The title of the video was something like 90, the surprising reason for 90% of illnesses, or something like that. It was something of that nature. I remember 90% and basically getting to um, dealing with what actually causes people to have, health challenges that they deal with. And the video was kind of long, about 2 hours, but I wasn't completely paying attention the whole time I had it on because I was doing other things as well. But I did hear the point where she said what in her experience, and her husband was a pastor, and a lot of people had been healed through him. I always maintain that God is the healer, that we're vessels, but that God is the healer. And he had seen a person actually come back to life. A lot of really profound healing miracles. And this lady uh, had been witness to and participant in a lot of healings as well, right? And so she'd seen these things happen over and over and over and over again, and kind of got a pretty clear sense of the root behind people's issues. Um, and one of the things actually that she said was, well, actually, what she later came to say was at the root of 90% of sickness and disease was unforgiveness, which resonated very strongly with me because that's something we definitely see very much as well in this work that we do, that is transcending the matrix. And in fact, when we go through the protocol, um, one of the last things that we do is address matters of forgiveness. And so I'm just going to go ahead. I'll give you these four things now, and then we'll kind of address them. Four keys to resolve any problem: love, gratitude, acceptance, and the one that I just told you, forgiveness. Those four things: love, gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness. Now, I mentioned in that prayer, and in this transcending the matrix work we do, which we always start off with a prayer. We I guess I'm gonna share some little secrets with you. So, like I said, we always start off transcending the matrix with a prayer, and I'm talking about transcending the matrix because this is what I know. I've been doing this for over 20 years now. I've been blessed to share this with a lot of people, people who are receiving healing as well as people who are going through training. Thank you, Curly Conscious King, for putting that in the comments. Yes, love, gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness. Four keys to resolve any problem, right? I know that's a bit of a bold statement, and you might wonder, what do love, gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness have to do with the fact that my boss is giving me a hard time at work? What do love, gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness have to do with the fact that I've got a tumor growing in whatever part of the body you might have that growing in? What does love, gratitude, acceptance, or forgiveness have to do with the fact that the world is going to hell in a handbag? What does love, gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness have to do with the fact that I can't seem to get a break, you know, financially? Every time it seems like I'm getting to breathe, something else is coming up. Or there's always, whenever a door opens, there's always something that happens where things fall through. What do love, gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness have to do with those things? Well, I'm a healer that works with people from all types of different backgrounds, including religious backgrounds. I am I am a minister. I'm myself a minister, and so I frequently tend to um, kind of share things from a scriptural perspective, um, because I know that's what I know. Um, and where I see some profound things. Well, the scriptures, the biblical scripture states that love covers a multitude of sins. It says love covers a multitude of sins. Now, the way that I actually kind of utilize, the way that I kind of language that now is brokenness. Okay, sin equates to brokenness. I don't necessarily even use the word sin very much unless I'm explaining it in that kind of context, because a lot of people have a lot of judgment and condemnation and stuff, that value judgments that they'll develop around the word sin. But what it really is speaking to is brokenness. Brokenness, the things that we do, you know, harming other people, lying, stealing, cheating, those things that we do, um, are coming from, and really the sin isn't the action. The sin is the mindset that leads to the action. Sin by definition is just missing the mark. I saw one definition of it as anything in the creature that separates it from the nature of the creator, right? And so you and I are created beings, right? And so anything that goes on within us, Carly, good to see you today, Carly, um, that separates us from the nature of our essence. Okay, missing the mark. We do these things out of a state of brokenness from misconstrued ideas that we've developed and other things going on. And so these four keys that I shared earlier, love, gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness, are the keys to resolve any problem that you might be dealing with in your life. Love. Now, I mentioned earlier about God being the healer. Let me give you, I'm going to drop a little piece of acceptance in this too. Okay, whenever we're doing a treatment, we start off with a prayer. And the first thing in the prayer is acknowledging God as a healer. Acknowledging that God is a healer and that we can be vessels of that healing. All right. And so there's something I say a lot of time: God is the healer, we're vessels, and love is the tool. In I've seen a lot of I've seen a lot of what can be referred to as medical miracles take place. I've seen, chronic pain resolved. I've seen broken bones repaired. I've seen tumors disappeared. I've seen a number of different health conditions just profoundly reverse themselves like that, very, 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 very quickly. And the thing in all of those situations is bringing love into a space where a person, and I'm going to very specifically say God's pure, unconditional love, into spaces where it had not been welcomed in. Because what happens is that we have things that happen in life, we experience things with people and life situations that we then sometimes internalize. And then when we internalize them as painful, uncomfortable experiences, things that we don't like, when we internalize negativity that's been spoken on us or to us, and we let that get on the inside, what happens is that where we are designed to be reflections of the pure love and divine light that God is, that being our own essence. And when we have these different things come in to our life experience and then we let them get on the inside of us, it's as if we've tucked these painful experiences away in a dungeon and closed the door. We put a barricade or a wall up to try to keep anything from getting to that spot where we've been hurt. And we do that in an attempt to protect ourselves, but in the process, we're also closing ourselves off. And so we're not welcoming the light of God's love into those spaces. And in this work that we're doing, all we're really actually doing is getting to the root cause of the problem and inviting pure love and divine light into that space for whatever that issue was that's being held in a certain space within a person's beingness that will show up within a person's cellular structure in this or that particular part of the body, thus causing problems in this or that particular part of the body. When the light of when that pure love and divine light is then welcomed in to that space where that darkness was, the healing manifests itself, right? The healing manifests itself. That's one example of love. And when I say love, and I keep saying like pure love, and you might hear me say pure love and divine light. These are things that um, I want to be very intentional about the kind of love that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a warm fuzzy necessarily that you feel when somebody that you're romantically attracted to is around. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a thing that we call love because we have passionate feelings about somebody and we want to kind of possess them and sometimes control what they do so that they don't do anything that will result in our pain. That's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about love. I'm talking about this love that is filled with grace, a love that is not based on conditions, even though we're frequently told by people who love us conditionally that their love is unconditional. I'm talking about a love that is completely covered in grace, a love that carries with it a level of acceptance. Uh, the late Dr. Cam Ewan, who I'm very, very thankful for his life and his presence in mine and what I was blessed to learn through him. I once heard him say, unconditional love is really unconditional acceptance. You accept a person for who they are and where they are. Now that doesn't mean you let them run all over you. It doesn't mean that you let them disrespect you. It does mean that you embrace them for who they are and where they are. Even if you're loving them from a distance, you still hold a generous space for them in your heart. This is a person who actually had someone that he definitely let in profound ways respond to him in a way that wasn't, in my opinion, and his feeling at the time, wasn't too cool. And that person ended up having a significant situation that they couldn't get resolved from anywhere else, although a very profound healer themselves, couldn't resolve it themselves, couldn't get help anywhere else. Kind of like that lady with the issue of blood that I was referring to earlier. Went back to him. The person ended up humbling themselves, going back to Dr. Ewan and the late Dr. Ewan now. And he received her back and worked with her. She was healed of that issue that she and nobody else seemed to be able to get rid of. And he thoroughly embraced her, thoroughly welcomed her back into his life, into what it is that he was doing. And it was actually after that that I heard him make this statement that unconditional love is actually unconditional acceptance. And I wasn't even thinking about that when I mentioned these four keys: love, gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness being the keys to resolve any problem. I'm going to tell you this though. I have seen time and time and time again people having issues and an issue being resolved by welcoming in the pure love of God into an area of a person's life that maybe they had closed off a long, long time ago, maybe even as a child, though the person may now be a senior citizen, right? I've seen that happen over and over and over again, that love has been the healing balm. And all of these And again, it's welcoming the presence of the light of God's love into the space where this person has held this issue, being able to have genuine sense of compassion towards people who might be, they might be a little testy. They might have a little funky attitude. They might be they might not be responding to you from a space of love. They might be responding to you very differently. And the truth of the matter is, a person can't really love somebody else if they don't love themselves. The thing is that a lot of times people are acting out their pain and acting out their shame. And when you respond to a certain person in a certain way who's acting out their pain and acting out their shame in a way that um, further contributes further contributes to this idea of them not measuring up, of them being inadequate somehow, of them being a shameful person, all that does is drive them deeper into the shame. It doesn't bring up any healing at all. In order to bring up healing, you've got to help them transcend that shame and that pain. And I've been in a number of situations, even dealing with customer service people or people at a store, where I felt like unnecessarily had an attitude. And I'm not a perfect human being. I'm not a perfect human being. I'm still on my journey. Now, I'm a much different person than what I used to be, but I haven't completely mastered this. There are times I still get triggered. There are times I have to catch myself. And I'll admit there are times I don't necessarily catch myself. If I'm tired and a lot of stuff is going on and I don't have a lot of time to deal with, sometimes I might be a little bit more short um, than I might otherwise like to. But I can tell you, I've seen a whole bunch of situations where people were responding with maybe a funky attitude. And I was able to just show some genuine concern for them. I was maybe somehow able to come from a space of love within my heart in a way that allowed me to maybe redirect the energy that they were kind of putting out in my direction, and it softened them, it lightened them up. Another scripture says that grievous words stir up anger, but a soft answer turns away wrath. Oh, I've endeavored to master that. I can't say that I have 100% mastered it, but I've certainly endeavored to master that, and I feel like I've made a tremendous amount of progress in that area. There have been a lot of times where people have tried to come at me sideways, and sometimes I might check them a little more firmly, but I really try to not have to do that because a lot of times I would use my tongue to break people down and to make people feel smaller. And that's not the man I want to be today. All right. I want to bring healing only, not a cause for a need for more healing. All right. I want to bring healing. I want to be very intentional in that. And so by being able to respond to the person with a degree of compassion, able to meet them where it is that they are, even if what they're thinking doesn't line up with what my thinking is, even if their way of doing things isn't the way that I would do things. I endeavor to come from a space of compassion, and compassion is really just, again, a function of love, right? The the reason that I can break it down to this one thing. The reason where we wallow in pain a lot of times is because we feel cut off from love. We have felt cut off from love in some way, including the love of God, by being born into this place called the earth realm, where there is pain that ends up being experienced by every human being who comes to this planet, right? And so that's where there's this feeling of not being loved sometimes. Sometimes you've experienced trauma. You might have experienced sexual trauma as a young child. I know people who had been molested as babies, had been physically penetrated as babies, right? And it's easy in that situation to feel that how could a God who loves me have let this happen, right? And so it's understandable for a person to feel cut off from love. But the love is always there. And boy, I tell you, I wish I had the time to totally and completely break this thing down. Just in terms of love alone, because I could do a whole bunch of hope and healing sessions just exclusively focusing on love, the healing power of love, how the fact of the matter is that no matter what you've been through in your life or what's happened to you in your life, you've never stopped being loved. For I could talk on ad infinitum about how the people who were supposed to love you in your life that didn't show up bringing that love to you in the way that you needed it didn't even mean that they didn't love you, that they were just loving you the best that they knew how, based on whatever their state of brokenness is. I could talk with you on and on and on and on about how no matter what it is that you've done or how much guilt and shame that you might feel about whatever it is that you've done, that didn't cause God to stop loving you. That God still loves you in spite of that. In the midst of that, God still loves you and wants you to reconcile you back to God, back to the righteous path, right? That God isn't seeking to punish you, that God is seeking to reconcile you, right? And so, yes, the enemy of your soul will take these so-called bad things that you did and feed thoughts of shame and all kinds of negative feelings, you know, try to encourage you to have all kinds of negative feelings about yourself. Shoot, shame is the thing that fuels every addiction, essentially. You know, for the most part, shame is the fuel that causes addiction to keep going on, because a person will do something and then feel bad about it, and then in a nutshell try to self-medicate that pain with doing it some more, because that had become their coping mechanism, and then they feel bad about doing it. I know because I've been there. I know because I've been there. Okay, in my own life. All right. And so love, love, the right amount of love can transform health conditions, can transform all kind of stuff, right? Can transform all kinds of stuff. Thank you for your comment, Lynette DeShields McMillan, that some people just don't have room in their hearts for anyone else. Okay. The reality is, I think about this song. It just got it's just got a handful of lines. And the song goes like this: I love myself so much that I can love you so much. I think it may only be 4 lines. That you can love you so much that you can start loving me. I love myself so much that I can love you so much that you can love you so much that you can start loving me. There is no self love that doesn't include love of others. And there is no love of others that doesn't include self love. So, one of these other keys is acceptance. Okay. If we can get to the point of accepting that we really are all one, if we can get to the point of accepting that no matter how different you might appear from me, if we can get to the point of accepting no matter how different you might seem, no matter how different you might behave, no matter how different you might look, that you and I are one. You know, there's a way that Martin Luther King Jr. put this. He said, we're all caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. This is part of the interrelated structure of our existence. Somehow I cannot be my best unless you are your best, and you cannot be your best unless I am my best. He understood this oneness. The reality is that it may seem, based on our third dimensional perspective, that we're separate from one another because I see me here and I see you over there. And so I perceive that we're separate. And because I perceive that we're separate, I perceive that in our difference, there must be some deficiency. So either I'm deficient or you're deficient. Nobody is wanting to be the one who's considered deficient. And so we'll project this thing. If we're different means that one of us has to be deficient, I'm going to project that sense of deficiency onto you, even if I'm the one who's feeling deficient, even if I'm the one who's feeling threatened, even if I'm the one who sees that you might be a little bit smarter than me, or you might have some advantages that I don't have, or you might be able to maintain your composure in a situation better than I can, or this or that, or whatever the situation might be. We end up projecting based on a sense of fear, false evidence appearing real. Things are not as they seem, however. If we can accept the fact that we're one, you know, some time ago, this was some years ago, I came to understanding in an agreement and relationship between me and God, or between God and I, between God and me, whatever the correct English is for the situation. That every intention that anybody has towards Royce Fletcher Thomason, whether it's for my detriment or whether it's for my good, will return to them twofold. I have seen this happen. I've seen people try to do me dirty, and then immediately something happened to that person. It didn't happen for me. I didn't need to be the one to try to cause them harm. And I don't even wish harm upon people. I don't have to. I see stuff happens to folks who try to do me wrong in some way. I see it all the time. I see it all the time. Similarly, folk who seek to bless me, I see doors of opportunity and blessings open up for them as well. I see it. I see it all the time. Now, there was something that God placed on my heart recently. I stand in a sense of assurance that no matter what anyone intends towards me, whether for my good or for my bad, returns to them twofold. And I know that I'm safe, I'm protected, I'm gonna be all right because God's got me. Now, a thing that was recently presented to me was, are you willing to take that on in reverse? That everything that you intend towards anyone or anything, for good or for ill, returns to you twofold. That requires a level of responsibility, but I accepted that responsibility, right? I accepted that responsibility. Hence, with this big, huge spider, as I said earlier, I've never seen a spider outside of a cage that was as big as this spider that I saw on my wall, and then on my ceiling, and then on the wall again, and at some point on the floor. Um, the spider situation is resolved now, but it was very important for me to come at it from a compassionate place. It was very important for me to come at it from a compassionate place. I was consciously thinking about what I'm intending towards this spider returns to me double, right? Um, the reality is that if we can accept that we're one with everybody else, the fact of the matter is, I heard an old preacher tell me one time. He said, you can't make somebody a peanut butter sandwich without getting a little taste for yourself. that whatever we do ends up coming back to us. Whether you refer to it as karma, or whether you refer to it as the law of cause and effect, or whether you refer to it as Newton's, I want to say, I don't remember his first, second, or third law of motion, that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. You refer to it scientifically like that, or if you refer to it in the context of whatsoever you sow, that shall you also reap. Okay, whether you refer to it, there was a physicist who discovered a his name escapes me. I can see him in my mind's eye. He's partially bald, and the hair that he does have is white. Um, if I think of it, I'll put it in the comments. But uh, discovered an intention particle. He referred to as an intention particle. And what it is that we intend is what ends up actually manifesting in our lives, and well, what ends up coming back to us. I'll put it that way, right? Um, Man, I tell you, I could go on and on and on about this stuff. I'm feeling to me, this is juicy. This is juicy stuff. Um, but if we can accept that that all of us are one, then how we relate to other people will change. That's not the only way I'm talking about acceptance, though. Medical doctors will tell you how stress kills. Medical doctors will tell you how stress kills. And let me specifically refer to, I want to differentiate eustress from distress. Eustress is uh, me being the eternal, the eternal romantic that I am. This kind of comes up for me. Eustress would be like you want to surprise a loved one with something special, and you're rushing to get things situated, like the surprise birthday party that we did for my mom, you know, last year. She had no idea this was coming and what the theme was, you know, or being romantically involved and wanted. Yes, that's that triple Libra, Jennifer. Um, Someone that may be romantically involved with and wanting to set up some surprise for them. And it may be in the form of a gift, it may be in the form of like setting up something to have her surprised in whatever way that I know that's going to bring a smile to her face and warmth to her heart. And scuffling to get things ready in that kind of situation, that would be referred to as eustress. Okay, eustress, EU. I think is how it's spelled. EUSTRESS. Distress, however, is like negative stress. Okay, distress is actually caused by resisting what actually is. That's actually the root of distress, is resisting what actually is. And so I carry a coin in my pocket every day. It's in my pocket right now. On this coin is the Serenity Prayer. The first thing in the Serenity Prayer, if you're familiar with it, is God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Acceptance. Acceptance. There are some things that we stress ourselves all the way out over that we cannot control. We might still try to control it, but still can't control it. I remember 6 years ago when Hurricane Harvey came to Houston when I was living in Houston. There had been some situations where I'd been stranded um, and knew of other people who had been stranded because the water didn't have anywhere to go, because there were heavy rains and the water didn't have anywhere to go. And so the water was too high to be able to get home or to get to work. I remember this happening. Um, And then this was even even 2 weeks before Hurricane Harvey hit Houston. And I saw that it was expected there was going to be about 50 inches of rain over a period of just a couple of days. And I knew there's no way. There's no way. This is going to be some serious flooding just based on the amount of flooding that had recently taken place with much less rain. And so I ultimately made the decision to evacuate and head to Florida, which is where I live now, although South Florida is where I went at the time. And I was all the way stressed. The apartment complex that I was living in had been underwater for a week and a half. It was running in loops on CNN. The complex where I lived, and I lived on the first floor. Um, there was nothing I could do to resolve what was going on in Houston. There was nothing I could do to to save my property. There was nothing I could do to resolve anything that was happening there. And I was all the way stressed out because I wasn't accepting that what was the case, and I couldn't do anything about it, right? I was constantly looking on Facebook, and that was when I first got the neighborhood app and trying to see reports of what was going on. Why did I need to see the reports? What was it actually going to do to help me? It was just going to give me more information of more stuff to be stressed out. And I was kind of obsessing over it at the time. And all it did was create a lot of stress until I got to that point of acceptance, accepting that this is what the situation actually is. Ended up letting go of just about everything. And I, even to this day, I don't say that I lost everything because loss, I wasn't able to control what happened in Houston or what happened specifically to the place that I called home. I was able to control my response to it though. And so the part of how I did that is how I languaged it in my mind, how I framed it in my mind, and how I languaged it. And so instead of saying I lost everything, I said I released it because I could control whether I lost it or not. But I could control whether I released it because I could have lost it all and not released it. I could have lost it all and not accepted that it was gone and been stressed and worried and angsting over these things that had a lot of personal value to me. Some of the things had financial value, some of the things just had sentimental value. Some of the things, some of the books that I wish I still had. Oh my gosh. Some of the keepsakes, um, you know, there was a lot of stuff. There was brand new furniture in the place, and it wasn't covered by flood insurance because it didn't have any flood insurance because I didn't live in the flood zone. Ended up just having to start over from scratch. But acceptance was a key in me being able to move forward in that situation. Accepting whatever the situation might be. There might be some people in your life who are making decisions that may affect you. All right. You might not be able to keep them from making the decisions that they're making, but you can accept that the situation is what it is. And you can do your part to maybe change the situation, but accepting that the situation is some because the reality is I couldn't do anything to change the situation as far as the fact that there were 50 inches of rain in a 3-day period in Houston, Texas, which is only like 50 feet above sea level. And the water didn't have anywhere to go. You know, I've got video of people in the complex where I used to live on boats leaving out of there going up to the front of the complex and seeing the tops of SUVs because the rest of the SUV is covered in water. Okay. There was an SUV from my household that was there, right? Um, but that acceptance is so key. Accepting people for who they are. And maybe you need to establish some boundaries where those people are concerned, but accepting them for who they are rather than wanting them to be somebody else. You know, that story that I told earlier, I was married at the time. Uh, it wasn't a particularly, it, it was difficult. I'm no longer married to that person. Um, on some level, I wanted the person to be someone other than who she was. And on some level, well, very clearly, she wanted me to be somebody other than who I was, right? Uh, at any rate, we don't have much time left, and really, pretty much all I've talked about so far has been love and acceptance. The four keys to resolving any problem are love, acceptance, gratitude, and forgiveness. Love, acceptance, gratitude, and forgiveness. I'm gonna, ah, we might end up doing a part two next week. I think that we may end up perhaps doing a part two next week. But I will touch at least briefly on gratitude and acceptance. Excuse me, gratitude and forgiveness. As far as gratitude is concerned, in a lot of ways, gratitude is the key for getting anything that you want. Having that gratitude in advance. As a matter of fact, I spoke recently at Transforming Love Community on the topic of don't worry, be grateful, having an attitude of gratitude in advance. Okay. There's scripture that says don't be careful about anything or don't worry about anything, but in all things through prayer and supplication. Supplication is that which you're requesting, the request of supply. With thanksgiving, let your request be made known unto God. And the peace of God that passes all understanding will keep your heart and mind through Christ Jesus, is what the scripture says. But the key part in that I want to focus on right now is even with your request, let thanksgiving be a part of your request, not just with your mouth, but get into a genuine attitude of appreciation, right? Getting internally into that state of feeling that sense of appreciation. You know, a person can have 1,000 different things that are going well in their life and 100 things that aren't going so well and one thing that's not going well at all. And then focus on the one thing that's not going well at all, the, and the 100 things that aren't going so well, and forget about the 1,000 things that are going well. A reality is that having been made in the image and likeness of God, we are creators as well. We have been blessed with the ability to create as well. And so, what we think about, and even more importantly, what we feel about, what we think, say, and feel is the space from whence we create the things that end up unfolding in our lives. And now you might want to say, hey, look, I didn't create this sickness. I didn't create um, this dispute that I'm having with this person. I didn't create, um, this drama on my job or in my relationship. Well, how responsible do you want to be? You already got a control freak in you anyway, whether you want to admit it or not. Why not take that part of you that wants to control the outcome in things and use it in a constructive way that actually is an appropriate way to do it. And that's by creating within your own internal self the experience of the outcome that you desire rather than focusing on what it is that you don't want. But this spider situation, it wasn't a particularly comfortable situation because I'm dealing with, is this a brown recluse or is this a wolf spider? A wolf spider and a brown recluse, their bite is very different than each other. Greetings, Melissa. Good to see you in the space today. Um, their bite is very, 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 very different. Um, how the level of toxicity in their venom is very, very different. But regardless, this is a huge spider, and I didn't want it in my home regardless. But I had to come to a point of acceptance. Greetings, Pam. Good to see you in the space today. I had to come to a state of acceptance with the fact that it was there and that it got to a point where I couldn't see it, where I didn't know where it was. I couldn't figure out where it was. And I had an event to go to. Um, Pam, you might appreciate this. It was an alpha event that I had to go to supporting these middle school and high school boys. And I end up being late to the thing dealing with the spider situation. And I didn't really want to leave not knowing where it was because I wanted to resolve it before I left because by the time I got home, it could be anywhere. I did not want a spider, particularly a spider this big, crawling on me when I was asleep or anything like that. But I had to get to a state of accepting that it was in the house. I had to get to a state of accepting that I didn't know where it was in the house or where it would be when I got home. All right. That acceptance was really important. I wasn't in denial about the fact that it was there, but I did come to a state of acceptance that it was there, and that helped me come to a certain state of peace. Um, but I also, it took a little work for me to get there, but I also consciously did work to enter into a state of gratitude about it being gone. Okay. And as I said, it is resolved now. The situation has been resolved. But I had to get into, actually, I had to do some work, some internal work to get into the feeling state, to get into the state of appreciation of it being actually resolved. I've done this with financial situations. I've done this with a whole lot of situations of actually getting into that state of feeling of feeling um, the gratitude for having what it is that I desired, even before the thing that I desired was giving physical evidence of making its way into my uh, presence or into my experience. So having that attitude of gratitude in advance uh, actually resulted, really, in essence, where you're putting your faith. You can determine where it is that you're placing your faith by whether you're feeling appreciative or whether you're feeling stressed and fearful. Okay. Because you have faith regardless. It's just a matter of where it is that you're putting your faith. Your faith is essentially believing in something that's not presently manifesting, right? And so you could you could be concerned about uh, some future thing, whether it's going to happen or whether it's not going to happen, and be stressed out about that. Well, that's where you're placing your faith. Or you could be um, dwelling in a state of gratitude for something that makes no logical sense to be able to happen happening, and you've got no physical evidence that it is going to happen, and then it ends up showing up. That happened with me just the other day. And I'm not even talking about the spider situation right now. I'm talking about a whole different situation that end up happening and end up manifesting from that state of appreciation, even while you're requesting, doing so from an attitude of gratitude and being able to enter into the feeling state of having it already, the thing that you desire, having it already, right? I'm telling you, this is powerful stuff. And the last thing is that forgiveness piece. It's incredibly powerful, folks. There's somebody that you need to. If you have a health situation, there's somebody that you're needing to forgive. If I heard Tyler Perry talk about Tyler Perry is a billionaire, is a billionaire. His first movie, a lot of the movie took place in this humongous mansion. Okay, the name of that movie was Diary of a Mad Black Woman. The movie primarily took place in this humongous mansion, and that humongous mansion was his actual home. Well, Tyler Perry used to be homeless. When he started doing plays, he was doing plays before he was doing movies. When he started doing plays, nobody was coming to the plays. He was losing money doing the plays. He had a job at some point with a phone company making like $30,000 a year. His mother was trying to get him to let go of the plays and just stick with the phone company. That was a secure job. Um, I'm sure she's happy that he left the phone company and stuck with it. But he was rather destitute. He came to a point of, in this case, he came to a point of forgiving his father. Right after he forgave his father, right after he forgave his father, is when his breakthrough happened. And this man is now a billionaire, right? A billionaire. He went from sleeping in his car to being a billionaire. And the key to that was forgiveness. Him forgiving his father. He resolved that unforgiveness and he forgave his father. There's somebody in your life that you need to forgive. If you're experiencing some issue in your life, think about who it is that you might need to forgive. It might be that you may need to forgive somebody who's not even seemingly related to whatever area it is in your life that you're having this blockage. If you've got some financial struggles, who it is that you need to forgive? If you've got some issue on the left side of your body, what woman or girl are you needing to forgive? If you've got an issue on the right side of the body, what boy or man or men are you needing to forgive? Right? Sometimes the person that you need to forgive is you for situations that you got yourself into. Sometimes there were things that happened to you that weren't your fault, but you felt shame about it. And maybe the person that you're needing to forgive is you. I'm going to tell you somebody else that we all need to forgive. Most of us aren't even willing to accept, there's that acceptance again, accept that there's even a need to forgive the one who I'm about to mention in just a moment. And if you have a sense of who it is that I'm going to say that you need to forgive, and that everybody does really, drop it in the comments if you would. Okay. I might say it before you get a chance to. I know it's on a few second delay from the time I say it to the time that you hear it. We need to forgive God. Yep, I said it. We need to forgive God. What do you need to forgive God for? Like in your mind, yes, you got it, Curly Conscious King. In your mind, it doesn't make sense to need to forgive God. God is perfect. You in your mind, on some level, you know that. Intellectually, you know that. But the problems that end up manifesting in your life are a result of the things that are going on subconsciously within you. The thing that kind of rules how you move through life is based on what's going on deeply within your subconscious mind, right? Those broken things going on within you, can sometimes lead you to make certain decisions without really recognizing why you're making those decisions. Even the things that you're attracted to, things that you have an appetite for, the things that you're repulsed by a lot of times. A lot of times we have an appetite for what isn't good for us, and we don't have a taste for that which is good for us. And that's whether it's related to food, activities, or people. We find stuff that's good for us and healthy as boring, and we find the stuff that's toxic as exciting and fun for whatever reason. Until we get to a healthy enough space that we're attracted to the stuff that's good for us and repulsed by the stuff that isn't, right? For most of us, it's some mixture of that. All of that is kind of in our soup, so to speak. So some things that aren't good for us, we are repulsed by, and some things that are good for us, we are attracted to. But for most of it, it's a mix of that. But at any rate, there may be certain things that happen to you in your life that you're upset with God about. You haven't owned that yet. You haven't been willing to accept that you've got some anger issues going on because you're mad at God, because God allowed you to have this experience, because you don't think God protected you in that situation, because God didn't answer the prayer the way that you wanted it to be answered. And maybe you're upset with God because things didn't turn out the way that you wanted them to. And you know that God could have if God wanted to, right? You're not forgiving anybody, including including people in your life that have hurt you, that you've been hurt by, including God. For them, you're doing that for you. Because unforgiveness creates toxicity within you. Unforgiveness creates blockages within you. It keeps you from going forward. A friend of mine, Spencer Murray, I heard him once say that unforgiveness is like taking poison and expecting somebody else to die, right? We might have these issues against someone else because we don't want to let them off the hook, or because we think it's condoning them, or because we want to get even with them somehow. And our spirit knows that that's not actually going to help anything. Again, that doesn't mean that we don't need to establish some boundaries. And sometimes we might need to address the person firmly. Sometimes we need to make a decision that a person is no longer going to take up occupancy, is no longer going to be granted the privilege of having a front row seat in your life. And also, at the same time, make sure that you're not allowing a person uh, negative thoughts about a person to take up occupancy in your inner world, right? Because that's only serving as being toxic towards you. And I've seen over and over again it being the cause of sickness and dis-ease. And yeah, you can go to a doctor and have the doctor cut something out. You can go to the doctor and have them give you some pill or some pills or a shot of some sort. But that doesn't resolve what is that you need to resolve in your heart. I wear this bracelet most days. It's a copper bracelet. It has a scripture on it, Proverbs 4:23, that says, "Guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it flow all of the issues of your life." And so this isn't about who we allow a loving space in our heart. It's what energy, what vibes do you let in your heart? Do you only allow love and grace and acceptance and appreciation, right? Forgiveness? Do you only allow those things in your heart, or do you also allow some other stuff in your heart, like bitterness, anger, or hatred, resentment, desire for revenge, animosity, shame? You know, those things end up manifesting as physical sickness, and they end up manifesting as other problems in a person's life. Okay. allow that forgiveness in, not for the other person, but for you. Okay. And then make whatever, modifications you might need to make in terms of how you relate to this person, how you deal with them. You know, maybe it is that you are going to sever ties in terms of your relationship with this person, um, and not allow them to be able to um, interact with you in the way that they used to. I got this affirmation from a lady named Anita Murjani, that says, I only engage with those who are loving and appreciative towards me. I started actually doing that affirmation, and still do it sometimes, particularly when I find myself getting in situations where uh, I'm not feeling good about the interaction I might be having with somebody. It's a way of redirecting within myself, and a way of establishing a spiritual boundary so that people who want to bring a lot of negativity to me just won't have access to me. Folk in the spirit realm are operating on my behalf to, like, you want to bring this joker, you want to bring this brother problems. No, you just stay over there. Um, and so as I affirm that and I get into that state of appreciation that it is the case, um, because I have loved myself enough to do that, then it makes all the difference in the world. Anyway, that wraps us up for today. I'll probably touch to some degree on some of these things that we didn't go into as much next week, and perhaps do some actual healing on it next week. If you know anybody that's dealing with some unforgiveness, if you know of anybody that's having a hard time letting something go, if you know of anybody who's dealing with um, you know what seems to be uh, locked door after locked door, where the opportunity just doesn't seem to be opening up for them that they're looking for. If you know of anybody who's dealing with a situation where they seem to have the same type of issue that shows up over and over again, it may be in a different package, but ultimately it's the same thing that's inside. It's the same life experience that they're ultimately having. If you know of anybody who is dealing with any health condition, whatever that health condition is, I encourage you to invite them to come back for the Sunday Hope and Healing session next week on either Facebook or on YouTube at Royce Fletcher Thomason on Facebook, or Matrix Healing on YouTube. That's one word, Matrix Healing, one word on YouTube. If you've not already done so, by the way, please subscribe to the Matrix Healing website. If you know somebody that you feel like this will be a blessing to, please share it with them. But when you share it, don't just share it without saying anything, because that's not gonna motivate anybody to want to click on it, particularly since it's at this point, been going on for over an hour. Somebody's not going to just decide to check it out just because you shared it without saying anything about it. Tell them why it is that you want them, what it is that you're wanting them to receive from it. Um, I share this work in 100% transparency. I would have been perfectly fine with not doing today's Sunday Hope and Healing session. I would have been completely fine uh, focusing on getting something to eat and watching the Detroit Lions football game. I would have been completely fine without getting dressed, right? I would have been completely fine with that. But I did this because, well, love, because I wanted people to be able to be blessed. I didn't want to withhold that. And I imagine for those of you who are still sticking around, even after an hour, that you've been getting something from this. And I want people to get something from this. That's why I do this. Whether I, in my flesh, so to speak, feel like doing it or not, I do this because I want to reach people. I want people to be set free. I want people to be whole. I want people to have these rich, vibrant, fulfilled lives. I want people to be able to walk in possibility and to have a miracle mindedness about themselves. I want us all as humanity living on planet Earth to be able to walk and interact in love instead of being at each other and there being all of this pain and all of this negativity in the world and people just being all about let me get mine and not really concerned about how that might negatively impact anybody else. I want us all to be able to operate. I want us all to be able to operate from a space of love and compassion and peace and wholeness. I want us to be able to be there for one another. I believe it's how we were designed. Believe we were designed to be there for one another, to support one another, to encourage one another, to learn the song in one another's hearts and to sing it to one another when we've forgotten it, right? And that's something I got from my late pastor who passed last week. Dr. Charles Gilchrist Adams. I remember him saying that in a sermon 30 something years ago, right? Um, and that's stuck with me. And I believe that to be true, that we are here to be here for one another in whatever way that we can, not in an enabling way, by the way, but in a way that actually truly supports one another and truly supports our well-being. Because a reality is that we are all one. And as again Martin Luther King Jr. put it, we'll all learn to live together as brothers and sisters. I'm adding the and sisters, or perish together as fools. We're all connected. If the ship goes down, it doesn't matter how much money you make. If you're on the ship, you're going down too. It doesn't matter what your gender is. We're all on this same ship together. If the ship is going down, we're all in the water. Okay. And so we all have a vested interest in the ship being righted. Not everybody is going to take responsibility for the righting of the ship. I choose to take responsibility for the righting of the ship. I encourage you to participate in the righting of the ship. All right. And we do that by allowing ourselves to get to the greatest state of wholeness that we possibly can, getting past the brokenness and getting to a space of wholeness. Because a lot of times we cause people problems that we don't even recognize. And the reason that we don't tend to recognize it is because we're so focused on the problems that other people have caused us and trying to resolve the problems in our own lives that we get so self-centered that we don't even recognize how our own drama is creating drama in the lives of other people. All right. And sometimes we don't even care to know or care if we do know because we're preoccupied with what's going on with us. Well, guess what? The more other people are whole, the more they contribute to your wholeness, the less they're bringing problems and chaos to your front door. And so I really believe that we're all in this thing together, whether we recognize it or not. You know, the again, the scripture says that it rains on the just and the unjust alike. It rains on the just and the unjust alike. That hurricane that I was uh, impacted by that was in Houston 6 years ago. There are people who are in a lot of different kinds of situations that all end up losing their homes, right? Some of them not only lost their home, but actually released it. They were maybe a little better off emotionally and mentally as a result. Anyway, I could go on and on, as to some degree I already have. Apologies for that. Um, but if this has blessed you, again, share it with somebody that you think might be blessed by it. If you choose to share it on Facebook, please share something about it that will inspire people to want to listen to it. You know, We want people to be healed. And again, please invite folk for next week. I'm going to actually talk about some of this again next week, but actually do some healing, do some of the work of healing to bring healing to help us all move forward. So, with that said, I bid you adieu as we together endeavor to enter into that into that sustainable state of supreme satisfaction. I bid you adieu and send you forth with peace and love. Look forward to catching you next time.